The NFL draft has come and gone, and everyone is filled with so much hope and potential that their team just drafted the next NFL superstar that will dominate the league for the next decade. But most of the time, well, that doesn't happen. So let's take a look back at over the past decade and talk about some of the biggest busts in draft history. Imagine trading up to the number 3 overall pick, giving up 3 first rounders in the process, only to draft a quarterback who had thrown just 420 passes since 2016. To put that into perspective, half the quarterbacks in the NFL threw more passes than that last season. Sure, Trey Lance had a ton of raw talent and potential, but it shouldn't have really been a surprise that he busted. In an alternate reality, the 49ers stayed put where they were, drafted Mac Jones, and turned him into a better version of Brock Purdy. Zach Wilson is out for the Jets and in with the Broncos, meaning that every husband in Denver just got a lot more nervous and every Cougar got a lot more excited. But there's a reason he failed in New York. Frankly, he's just not any good. Sometimes he'll flash and put it all together for a drive or even a half, but most of the time he just ended up looking lost out there on the football field. He's been the Jets starter for the past 3 years, even when they didn't want him to be, and he's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns and only passed over 300 yards twice. As a Titans fan, this one particularly stings, just because this pick never should have been made. He had a ton of raw talent, but more than enough red flags and character concerns that he should have never had a first round pick spent on him. He just showed a complete disinterest in being on an NFL team or even playing football at all, just playing a grand total of 3 snaps his rookie year. He was sent to the Dolphins for a 7th round pick, was out of the league within the year, mostly because he just wanted to spend all of his time becoming a rapper. When you take a wide receiver this early, well, you expect them to become a true alpha wide receiver 1, someone every team has to game plan for, and maybe they could possibly dominate the league. But that just wasn't the case with Kevin White. Sure, he was plagued of injuries. He missed his entire rookie season because of injuries, but only 25 catches for the Bears, 28 catches in his career, and no touchdowns. So just an embarrassing bust. The Raiders definitely have a history of reaching in the draft, and because of that, they have a history of drafting a lot of busts. One of those was Alex Leatherwood, a guy that pretty much no one believed was a first round talent, except for the Raiders, because they took him with the 17th pick. And it came back to bite them too. He was released from the team a year later and is now a free agent and basically on his way out of the league. John Ross broke the NFL Combine record for the 40-yard dash, until Xavier Worthy broke his record. And just like what's happened with Worthy, John Ross shot up the draft board, went from a fringe first rounder to a top 10 pick. Everyone was just in love with that speed. They all just wanted to go fast. But then Ross saw a whole 2 targets as a rookie. 2 targets. He became a bit more involved over the next few years, but never developed into a reliable starter, and is now most famous as being the guy who was drafted right before Patrick Mahomes. Never forget what Josh Rosen said when he fell to pick 10 in the 2018 draft. I thought I should have been picked at 1, 2, or 3. I dropped and I was pissed. I was really angry. There were 9 mistakes made ahead of me, and I will make sure over the next decade or so that they will know they made a mistake. It turns out the only mistake was the Cardinals trading up to draft him. They got the first overall pick that year and quickly replaced him with Kyler Murray just 1 year later. Like I said, the Raiders definitely have a history of ignoring draft consensus and just getting whoever they want. And they did it here with drafting Clelin Ferrell at pick number 4. Most everyone had him at a late first rounder. There were better defensive players like Ed Oliver and Josh Allen still on the board. While Ferrell hasn't necessarily been awful, he's definitely not produced to the level that you would expect from the 4th overall pick. Now, ignore the fact that Henry Ruggs is literally in jail for vehicular manslaughter and will never play in the NFL again. Just throw that out. It was a bad pick before any of that. He was picked 12th overall, meaning he was the first wide receiver off the board in the draft. Was taken ahead of the likes of CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman, T. Higgins. Literally any of these wide receivers would have been a better pick in this spot. Massive swing and a miss. Johnny Football was always going to be a reach in the first round, so it shouldn't be surprised that the Cleveland Browns took him in the first round. All the red flags that were there in the pre-draft process showed up in full swing when he actually made the league. He played too much backyard hero ball, didn't take time to learn the playbook, just tried to rely on his raw talent. And while he was extremely talented, so is everyone in the NFL, so that's not going to get you far. Not to mention all the off-the-field stuff and the partying. Well, Johnny Manziel was released after just 2 years on the team. This one is just bad. Not just because Jalen Reagor never lived up to the hype or to the draft cost that was spent on him, but because this could have easily been Justin Jefferson instead. In fact, Jay Jettas was picked just 1 pick later by the Vikings, had one of the best rookie years of all time, went on to become arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL right now. It's a pick so bad that it made the Eagles completely rethink how they view wide receivers and move up to draft Devontae Smith a year later. For as good as a coach as Bill Belichick is, even for being a pretty good GM too, he definitely had his Achilles heel. The man could just not draft wide receivers to save his life. He tried, and he tried, and he tried, all of them busted. The only one that worked out was drafting Julian Edelman, and he just lucked his way into that one. But probably the worst one of them all was N'Keal Harry, mostly because of who the Pats could have drafted instead. A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, and Terry McLaurin were all still on the board. If the Patriots had drafted one of those elite wide receivers instead, well, who knows how the dynasty would have gone. I know it's very early to say that Bryce Young is an official bust. He's only played for 1 year, and it was a less than ideal situation to throw a rookie quarterback into. I mean, the Panthers are easily the worst team in the league, and I don't see them really getting any better anytime soon. But what makes the pick verge on bust material already is 1, how Bryce played, but 2, what they had to give up to go get him. I mean, the Bears got DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Caleb Williams out of it. That's like one of the most lopsided trades in recent history.